Europe at a crossroads. Sovereignty, security, and the crisis of unity. Europe is entering a phase of fundamental reorientation. Tensions between national interests, security responsibilities, and collective European policymaking are becoming increasingly visible. In this complex landscape, Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has emerged as one of the most striking voices in Europe's political debate. Her criticism of the European Union and key political figures such as German Chancellor Friedrich Merz reflects a deeper unease. The fear that Europe is losing its political independence and its ability to find balance. A Europe between responsibility and escalation. In recent months, the debate surrounding Europe's role in international security has intensified. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz repeatedly emphasizes that Germany must assume more responsibility, militarily as well. According to him, Europe can only protect its political order if it acts decisively and is willing to take security risks. However, not everyone agrees with this stance. Critics warn that Germany may be setting a dangerous precedent. The idea that German soldiers could be deployed in an active conflict such as the war in Ukraine is seen by many observers as a break with the pacifist principles of the post-war era. Meloni, too, expresses concerns about further militarization in Europe. She sees in these concepts a potential for escalation that could destabilize the continent. Meloni's call for realism. The Italian Prime Minister is often viewed as a pragmatic leader who, despite her conservative orientation, prioritizes independence and realism. While other European leaders speak of responsibility and deterrence, she argues that European policy must be shaped by the real challenges people face. In a widely discussed speech, Meloni reportedly asked how many soldiers Europe would actually be willing to commit if a direct confrontation were to occur. This rhetorical question underscores her skepticism toward overly ambitious military strategies. Meloni does not see Europe as a bloc that automatically aligns with the foreign policy lines of NATO or the United States. Instead, she advocates for an autonomous European security framework based on diplomacy and national sovereignty. This often puts her at odds with Paris and Berlin, which traditionally maintain closer transatlantic ties. Sovereignty as the core issue. At the heart of Meloni's position lies the question of European sovereignty. She does not view the European Union as a supranational authority that should impose decisions on member states, but as a community that respects and balances national interests. This sets her apart from political currents that call for stronger EU centralization. Meloni argues that Europe can only be credible if it learns to say no, even under pressure from Brussels or Washington. Her vision of a sovereign Europe involves clear priorities: national responsibility, economic stability, and social security before symbolic foreign policy. Ukraine, a deepening divide. The war in Ukraine has created both military and political divisions within Europe. Some governments insist on uncompromising support for Kiev, while others stress the importance of diplomatic solutions. Meloni positions herself between these camps. She supports Ukraine politically, but warns against further military escalation. Merz's calls for increased military engagement are seen by her supporters as a sign of insufficient caution. From Meloni's perspective, Europe risks being drawn into a conflict that could undermine its security principles and moral foundations. Migration, the second major fault line. Beyond security policy, migration remains one of the most divisive issues in the European Union. For years, Brussels has attempted to establish a common framework, yet member states struggle with solidarity and burden sharing. Italy, Greece, and Spain carry the largest share of incoming migrants. Meloni has repeatedly emphasized that the current system, especially the Dublin regulation, is no longer sustainable. The rule requiring asylum seekers to apply for asylum in the first EU country they reach places disproportionate pressure on border states. Germany, meanwhile, attempts to alleviate the burden through repatriation agreements and bureaucratic measures, often with limited success. Most repatriation efforts ultimately fail due to legal and logistical obstacles. While Berlin claims to be acting decisively, many observers interpret this as another example of EU dysfunction. Meloni also highlights this contradiction. Europe speaks of solidarity, yet in practice, southern member states are left to cope alone. Italy's renewed self-assertion. Under Meloni, Italy has adopted a more assertive stance. Rome has signaled that it will no longer bear the weight of Europe's migration policy alone. In several speeches, Meloni declared that Italy will cooperate only if other member states also fulfill their responsibilities. This position is welcomed by many Italians, though it has sparked criticism in Brussels and Berlin. Her government positions itself as a defender of a Europe based, not on moral symbolism, but on functional policy. For Meloni, this includes securing the EU's external borders and tackling migration at its source, tasks she believes have been neglected. Germany versus Italy. A clash of perspectives. While Germany traditionally emphasizes humanitarian responsibility and European cooperation, Italy is increasingly focused on assertiveness and national priorities. These differing approaches repeatedly generate friction. Meloni has frequently criticized Germany for pursuing deportations while simultaneously supporting NGO-led migrant rescues. Both countries find themselves in political dilemmas. Germany struggles with implementing deportation policies, while Italy faces overwhelmed reception systems. The tension between Rome and Berlin reflects a broader European problem, a union that shares values but rarely finds shared solutions. The broader European context. Behind these debates lies a fundamental question: how much national autonomy can the European Union accommodate? For some, increased integration is the only way to remain globally competitive. For others, like Meloni, too much centralization threatens democratic legitimacy. Domestic political shifts also play a role. Across Europe, parties advocating stronger national sovereignty are gaining influence. These movements are reshaping the political landscape and forcing traditional parties to reconsider their positions on issues like migration, defense, and energy. Dialogue instead of confrontation. Despite their differences, there are signs that the EU is attempting to maintain internal balance. Both Merz and Meloni emphasize in their speeches the importance of dialogue, even though their policies diverge. Brussels increasingly recognizes that a permanently fractured Europe would lose its ability to act. Meloni's emphasis on sovereignty should therefore not be interpreted as anti-European. Instead, it reflects a widespread desire for more equality and fairness within the Union. In Germany as well, voices are growing that call for EU decisions to better reflect real-world implementation challenges. A changing Europe. The coming years will determine whether Europe can strike a balance between integration and national autonomy. Debates over military responsibility and migration illustrate both the depth of internal divisions and the need for continued dialogue. Giorgia Meloni represents an approach that seeks to combine national interests with European responsibility. Friedrich Merz, meanwhile, symbolizes Germany's effort to redefine its leadership role within the EU. Both leaders present different answers to the same question: how can Europe survive in an uncertain world without losing its values and stability? In the end, it is not rhetoric but compromise that will shape the future. Europe will remain strong only if it sees its diversity of perspectives not as a weakness, but as a source of strength.